channel. Robert Kesakos is the usual suspect. Welcome back to another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. We are 1 hour late because somebody decided to play sabotage. It's as simple as that. Or sheer lack of respect for time and and something like that. Remember, anyway, consider those problems of not having the studio where you needed to shoot your content, like me myself. So, anyways, it's a pleasure to be back this beautiful Monday morning. It's a bit cloudy-ish out there. Looks like there are chances of rain. We do not know, but yeah, that's what's happening. And on this beautiful morning, we'll be discussing the ongoing boycott of the Uganda Premier League after the kickoff of the new league format and the ongoing war that continues between, the Federation of Uganda Football Associations, the fans, and one club that has stood firm to its word that they won't be honoring those fixtures in the new league format because they do not agree with the new system, that the new system kills the game. And it's not rocket science. It is as simple as it is straightforward that somebody has set out a course to ruin Ugandan football. And the reason as to why I say that is when you introduce something and it is well intended, if you see that it does not get the reception you intended for it to get, the expectation is that you wouldn't be so rigid in your own thoughts to sort of think that others cannot think better than you, or to the extent that you cannot accommodate new opinions, in that sort of sense. So that's how I would put it. Anyways, oh, Jesus Christ, not again. Anyways, so basically that's it. That's what we'll be talking about on this beautiful Monday morning in regards to the Uganda Premier League, and then particularly that's where our attention is going to be. And then of course we will be off into the other things that did happen during the course of the weekend, including Barcelona's humbling humiliation at the hands of Sevilla, and things like that. So yeah. Anyways, here's what I'm going to say, and I know this is a topic we'll touch on. I think we did discuss it a bit last week, but I thought it's one that is not going away. It's made the front pages. That's in the Daily Monitor Truth every day. I think I need to find out what the headline is. I thought it's important. It's really, really important. Yes, the headline. Okay, on the back pages. This is on the back pages of the Daily Monitor. It says "loud in protest," and this is in the aftermath of Vipers, refusing to honor their fixture. Of course, they admitted to the Federation of Uganda Football Associations as well as the Uganda Premier League Secretariat that they won't be honoring their fixtures in the new league format. I have explained to you before how the new league format works, but to summarize it for you, for those of you that are not well conversant with what the changes that we are talking about are, is that the Federation of Uganda Football Association sat down and decided to make a departure from the traditional round robin, a league format, as we know it literally across the entire globe, or the entire spectrum of football, because we know in the world of league football is that you play at home, then you play a team away. It's just that simple. At the end of the day, he who accumulates the most points sort of walks away with the league title. That's how it works. Even in the most of leagues that we do admire, the Premier League, Spanish La Liga, I mean, literally everywhere, even on the African continent. Go to South Africa, go to Egypt, go to Morocco, wherever, Tunisia, that's what it is there, Hi LFC, how are you? So basically, they did a departure from that and said, we are going to play a three-phase league format. And in that league format, again, for purposes of simplicity, the first round My audio is echoing. Oh, sorry about that. Oh, yeah, it's really, really bad. It's really, really bad. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on, but let me see if we can adjust. Let me perhaps switch to a different microphone and I see if the watching will be better. That's the letter now. How about now? Are we in the clear? I don't think so. It feels like I still have the. We're in the clear. Okay. If this is more clear, then we can go on. If the echoes are out of it. Okay. Yes. So I was trying to simplify the new Uganda Premier League format, and basically I was saying we went away from the round robin format as we've come to know of most leagues around the world, or if not every league around the world, and then they introduced what is a little bit alike of the UEFA Champions League at the group stage. So, in other words, you have a pool of 16 teams that only get to play themselves only once. It's either away from home or at home. Now, again, for some of those teams, they've chosen to take those games away from their own crowds. Again, to literally deny teams of any home advantage, of any home crowd that you incidentally have to pull when you're playing at your own turf. They've, they've had the departure away from that. And over the weekend, we had the record champions, Back Sports Club Villa, play up against, I think, the second most successful team in Ugandan football in as far as the league is concerned. That's KCCA. I think they have about 13 or 14 Premier League titles to their name. Now, those two teams were supposed to play in what was called not a double header, but there were two fixtures on the same day at the same ground. That's at Mandela National Stadium, Nambole, where Kitara from the Bunyoro sub-region was set to play Vipers. Vipers are the reigning champions of the Uganda Premier League. That's Vipers Sports Club. In fact, they won the double, winning the Uganda Cup as well. So, like I said beforehand, Vipers wrote to the Federation of Uganda Football Associations as well as the Uganda Premier League Secretariat and copied to whomever was responsible that they won't be honoring their fixture. So the first game that was set to kick off, I think around 5 p.m. or thereabout or 4, that was forfeited. Itara showed up, Vipers were in a show. And then in the subsequent game, Sports Club Villa did play up against KCCA. So that game went on. Now, what has been ongoing has been a war between, of course, the clubs and the clubs and the federation, because this new league format was introduced by the federation. Now, when the federation introduced this new league format, that is similar for round 1 to that of the UEFA Champions League at the group stage level. Quote me well. At the group stage level, where you remember the UEFA Champions League has that it has 4 pots where there are 9 teams each, and you only get to play the opponent only once. Either you're playing them at home or away from home. It's done and dusted. There's no round robin. So it's sort of similar to that. Now, after that first round, the teams are ranked in terms of first to 16th. Now, then based on those rankings, the teams are grouped into 2 groups. The top 8 and then the bottom 8, or from 9th place to 16th. Then they put in a different component or sort of bracket or pot in that sort of arrangement. Now, once those 2 groups have been made, they say disqualify everything that happened in the first round. In other words, it was only to help us determine who goes into what pot. Basically, which on another given day, you would simply choose to say, let's just go to a vote, the way UEFA Champions League votes are conducted, or draws, and determine who goes in pot A, pot B, whatever. Now, you've made teams play 15 games in the first round, and you're saying all that has no withstanding whatsoever on the new, on whatever the end result will be in regards to going forward. So, those games were only to help us rank. And I'm saying, why would teams or clubs be spending money to play round one, for which you say is for competitiveness, and yet it's not going to count at the end of the day? Because let's be honest, when you play in the Uganda Premier League, the math is simple. There are teams that are there to ensure that they do not get relegated. There are possibly about 3 or 4 teams at the very best that are fighting to win the league. Now, we've had this happen before, where a team was close to winning the league. And apparently, and I say this apparently or allegedly, quote me well, allegedly, their minders or their bosses told them not to win the league. Why? Because of the cost implications it would bear on the club if they win the league title. Because when you win the Uganda Premier League title, you then qualify to play in the CAF Champions League. Now, when you play in the CAF Champions League, because of Uganda's low ranking in terms of the leagues across the continent, that means you have to go through a preliminary round. Now, you play 2 preliminary rounds before you qualify for the group stages of the CAF Champions League. Now, playing through the preliminary rounds, there are financial resources that you commit. I think there's about what? About $10,000 that you owe to pay to CAF. And then, of course, regardless of where you're going to play at the continent, you get to play home and away fixtures. So that means you have to transport a team. You have to go through the CAF processes. Most of our teams do not have stadiums that are up to the standards, to the required standards. In any case, there's only about 2 or 3 stadiums that would pass CAF inspection to host games of that caliber. And by that, you look at St. Mary's Stadium, Chitende, that's the home of Vipers. You look at Mandela National Stadium, Nambole, recently refurbished to host the CHAN games. And then the other stadium will be Nachivubo Stadium. This one also has AstroTurf. And we know that, players do not fancy it much, but it does meet the basics of what would be required of an international stadium. I say the basics because I know it does not have all the requirements. That's for sure. Then the other is the one that is undergoing construction. That's the Hoima City Stadium, but that one has not yet been unveiled because it's still under construction. It's at about 95% completion rate. Anyways, so that means it's only one club, and I repeat, only one club, Viper Sports Club, that have a stadium that meets CAF standards. And even with the CAF standards, CAF themselves have had to take a compromise on one of the key items, and that is having paved roads leading to the stadium. I've never been to St. Mary's, the stadium, but it is said that the sort of secondary path or route to the stadium is not paved. I don't know if that's changed in recent times, but that had always been the reservation of CAF, and people try to call on government to help the proprietor of the club, that's Dr. Lawrence Muringwa, to pave the road to leading the stadium. But anyway, so that means if you're a club other than Vipers that have won the Uganda Premier League, and then you qualify for the CAF Champions League, then you would need to hire a stadium or rent a stadium that is certifiable to CAF to host those games, or that's financial resources. Resources that most of our teams do not have. Resources that because for our investors in Ugandan football, they are deep-pocketed to the extent of the Ugandan standards. In other words, you wouldn't compare them to young Africans, to young in Tanzania or Simba. You wouldn't compare them to Moises Katumbi, the owner of Atipi Mazembe. You wouldn't compare them to, maybe Esperance, maybe Zamalek, maybe clubs like Al Ahly, Raja Casablanca, First Rabat, Supersport United, the Kaizer Chiefs, the Orlando Pirates, the Mamelodi Sundowns. You cannot compare them to that, even if it was St. George of Ethiopia, and things like that. So, at the end of the day, a procurator is alleged to have told his coach and players not to win the league title. Why? Because he would not afford taking his team to the continent. But then also, the Federation of Uganda Football Associations came in to say, we will help support a team that qualifies for the continent by buying tickets for their away games. Now, according to Dr. Lawrence Mulindwa, the Federation of Uganda Football Associations has never come good of that. It's only it's only their verbatim. It's only empty promises. Then, the same Federation of Uganda Football Associations that is promising these clubs money to play in the new format to the tune of 3.4 billion shillings, for which not all of it is their money or is going to be going to them. It's actually only 1.2 billion that will be going to them, and the other 2.4 billion going into administrative and marketing work, apparently, which is very, very bogus in itself. Now, that same federation has failed or is in arrears in terms of paying clubs that have won tournaments. For example, previously, if you won the Uganda Premier League, you win cash prize of 60 million shillings. So the federation is the one supposed to give you that. I don't even want to call it jaywalking, but that money takes ages to come, if it ever comes. In the experience of Dr. Lawrence Mulindwa, they don't even have that money. Now, in the new league format, their proposed changes, their promises of money, because they've literally tried to attach money to everything as the selling factor. And even that money is still peanuts. It's still peanuts. Because when clubs protested that in the new league format, I think one of the relegated teams was going to get 2.5 million, then they increased it to about 3.5. And this is according to Dr. Lawrence Mulindwa. And he's asking them, where are you guys getting the money if it wasn't there in the first place? So that's it. So those two games went on. One wasn't played, that one of Vipers and Kitara. Then KCCA beat up against Sports Club Bira by 2-1 in that other fixture, but it was an almost empty stadium. It wasn't entirely empty, but for a stadium that prizes itself to be a 40,000 capacity seater or 35, depending on how you look at things. I mean, I bet it had even 100 people. So on the front pages or on the back pages and on the front page of the Daily Monitor, what you will find there is a big picture of an empty stand, literally, of the Nambole Stadium, saying Uganda Premier League plunges into crisis. That's their subheadline, on the dailies, and it speaks volumes. In the build-up to those very games, fans online continue to express their discontentedness with the new league format. They don't understand it. They're not willing to support it. Players themselves have expressed their opinions behind closed doors, that the league format is not something that they want to support. That this new league format is one that they do not understand. They're just playing because they are there. Hi, Mariam Nalumansi. Good morning. It's been a while. I hope you're doing well. So that in itself, notwithstanding, the players, the fans have said, we're not coming to watch those games. There's a handful of fans, of course, are loyal to their teams that will go and watch. And it's not to say that those that are not going and are not loyal to their teams, they're simply protesting the new league format. And yet, one of the selling points in the new league format is the federation is promising to commit resources to market the league. Now, how do you market something that people don't want in the first place or people don't agree with? Two, it's promising to increase competitiveness. And we are saying, if it's about the money, give the money in the old league format. If it's about competitiveness, there are better ways to go about this. And yesterday, I was listening to some punditry, and somebody was of the view that, okay, slice those teams from 16 teams to 13 teams, then go and play a round robin for the first round, and rank the 12 teams, and then maybe one team gets relegated at the end of it, or two teams. And now, after the 24 games that you would have played in that round robin, then yes, 24 games. Go and take the top 6 to play a one-legged fixture at the second round. Now, those top 6, then whoever finishes, above it all is the one that will win the league. I mean, they give their own opinions and modalities that there would be, if that kind of concept would be adopted. But the seats were empty, the fans are in protest, they're saying we are not going to watch games, we are not going to support this new league format. Like I said, the Vipers proprietor, Dr. Lawrence Mulindwa, did say if it means leaving Ugandan football, he will leave Ugandan football and go do other things. In any case, it's football that gets from him, it does not get from football. And I've said this before. If there are teams that make money, or even in the Uganda Premier League, there could be 1, 2, 3, or even just 1, 2, or even just 1, or even none, in terms of what the investment is in playing the league or continuing to play football. Because you look at a person like Dr. Lawrence Mulindwa, the amount of investment he's put into football, building a stadium, the kinds of players he builds, because he desires to always be the best. So he goes for top players. He goes for top players. And those top players cost a lot of money. Those players are paid monthly. Those players are given allowances, And you look at the amount of money that our teams make, and it's very little. The money that they get in sponsorship from the league sponsors, our starter in Uganda Premier League, is also little, or modest, So I do sort of understand where he's coming from. And he's said, we call him the honorary FUFA vice president, as he's the ex-president of the Uganda Federation of Uganda Football Associations. And he has vowed, and he said this, and I quote, this is according to the Daily Monitor. This format is not only confusing, but a total mockery. I want to assure Ugandans that I cannot be intimidated, bribed, or corrupted. If you want to dismiss Vipers out of Ugandan football, I have no problem. Me, I do not feed on football. It is football that feeds on me. But FUFA feeds on football. You remove a football, they will not exist. He added by saying, if they are not willing to listen, I am not ready to bow down. This is the beginning of the struggle. If they do not consider their position, we shall fight. Do not expect to change my mind, because they are taking is gambling, manipulation of football, and match fixing. I mean, he couldn't have put it any better. Because the way I just explained it to you is that if you adopt the new format as it is, basically, if a team plays in the first round, that helps group those teams into two pots. If a team finishes within the top 8, then they have, and they are not interested in winning the Premier League title, they have nothing else to play for besides a few pennies. Because one, they are guaranteed of not getting relegated because it's teams in Group B or from 9th to 16th that then go into the second round, which is a round robin at that stage, that then where we will determine the two teams that get relegated. So if I finished 8th and let's say I'm a team like excuse me, I'm a team like Bohimba United Saints, or I'm a team like Entebbe UPPC FC. I'm a team like UPDF FC, if I'm a team like Mbara City, if I'm a team like Calvary, if I'm a team like Maroons, that means I can fix my games. I can sell them because I'm secure. I'm not going to get relegated. And it's not like my ranking is going to change much in terms of what revenues I get at the end of the season, which may or may not come in the very principle of it. So the new league format is just going to aid and abet match fixing. That's just what is going to happen. So that's what the honorary FIFA vice president or ex-FIFA president is alluding to. And he talks about fighting, but they will fight for Ugandan football. If there's anything that we do know of Dr. Lawrence Mlindwa is that he has a passion for sports. He loves this. He loves sports. He loves football. He's been at the helm of FIFA. He's very passionate about the game. So he will do anything to defend it, to protect the integrity of the game. It's not to say he's perfect. Nobody is perfect, but at least he will stand his ground. Now, just to give you a backdrop about the same conundrum, is that apparently team managers or chairmen were bribed with 50 million shillings to accept the league changes. We all know that majority of these teams were in protest to those very new league format changes that were literally brought out of thin air, trying to reinvent the wheel when there's no need to. Apparently, they were bribed with 50 million to accept. Then others were cowed into submission or threatened. What do I mean by threatened? And this is all alleged as such. They had meetings with the federation. They did not agree. They promised to meet up again. By the time they came back up at the time, Dr. Lawrence Mlindwa was speaking on majority of these clubs, saying, we do not understand what you're trying to introduce. It's not going to work. We do not like it. These are our reservations. Look at this, and everything. A lot was said. And then because they did not agree, they made room for further engagement to meet again in a few days' time to discuss the matter further. So what the Federation of Uganda Football Association did was go and reach out to club owners, and most of our clubs are institution-based, or many of them are institution-based. Our clubs like Ball FC is a business-owned club by a company called Bidco Uganda Limited. KCCA Football Club is a government entity of the Kampala Capital City Authority. Police FC is a government team from the Uganda Police Service, from the Uganda Police Force. You have Lugazi FC, is a team backed by Lugazi Sugar. Okay, but maybe you could call that one private, and maybe Bull you could consider it private. But let's go to those that have a direct hand of government. KCCA, Police FC, UPDF, NEC, Maroons. Maroons is a club for the prisons. Now, you have 5 clubs: Maroons, URA, NEC, UPDF, Police, KCCA. That's 6 teams, actually. Now, out of all those, remember there are 16 teams. Then you're left with 10. Those other 10 also have, that are led by certain businessmen. They're going to be threatened. They cannot stand their ground. So at the end of the day, it's only one person that stood in this car, and that's Vipers. So when I say that they were cowed into line, is that it's, for many, it simply boiled down to a phone call. You're the club chairman, you are appointed by a certain board, or you're holding in trust or whatever. Your boss calls you to say, accept the new changes and move on, or else you will be out of a job. So if you want your job, you append your signature to say we will accept the new changes. So basically, that's what happened, and it's very, very unfortunate. But the point I want to make in all this, in conclusion, is that it's football that loses. If we wake up and there's no league football, I do not think there's anybody that is going to lose sleep over that. The fans will just accept the circumstances as they are and move on to other things, you know. And then fast forward, you will not have teams, because somebody threatened that they could even dissolve the league. And guess the person who was making those statements is the third FIFA vice president in charge of clubs. In other words, instead of them speaking for the clubs, they speak for the federation. More, instead of representing the interests of the clubs, the Honorable Nashwara Chingi. I mean, sometimes I sit there and I'm like, does she have a full grasp of this thing called football, or it's a side thing for her? Anyways, I leave that at that. But currently, it's Buhimba United Saints FC who are on the summit of this new league format. So you can see that the teams in green, if you go to the Uganda Premier League website, those will be in pot 1. And those from 9th and below will be in pot 2. Let's just wait and see what the end result will be. But personally, I support Dr. Rollins Punigwa with his decision to step aside, to boycott this. Fans will continue to boycott these games. A handful will go and watch some of the games, but let's see how far FIFA are willing to go with their stubbornness. And by the way, I don't want to put it on FIFA as a whole. It's only one person, the Federation President, Engineer Moses Magogo. He's the mastermind of all this. And we know the high-handedness involved in all this, or at least we've had a fair share of what there is. But yeah, we will leave at that. We will leave it at that. We will leave it at that. Anyways, let's move on and go to the weekend. The weekend was very, very entertaining. Some disappointments, some celebrations. As we concluded the weekend, Arsenal had climbed to the summit of the Premier League with 16 points, following their 2-0 victory against West Ham United. It goes by Bukayo Saka a penalty, and Declan Rice scoring against his former side to ensure that Arsenal got a victory for the first time in the last 3 meetings between them and West Ham United at the Emirates Stadium. Bukayo Saka getting his, I think, 100th goal involvement in about 200 Premier League appearances for the Arsenal. I think he has about 54 goals and about 46 assists. You know, excuse me, to reach those big numbers. So congratulations to him. Liverpool suffered their 3rd defeat across all competitions. When they lost to Chelsea on Saturday by 2 goals to 1. They conceded a late goal at the hands of William Estaval, with Marco Correa providing the assist. Moises Caicedo had scored to give Chelsea the lead, while Cody Gakpo scored in the second half to cancel out Chelsea's lead, but they managed to win that game by 2 goals to 1. Of course, the big question is that should people be worried about Liverpool? My simple answer is no. But if you want to know my full thoughts about what I make of Liverpool and where they are as a team, please go to the channel under the video section. You will see that video where we do ask Liverpool, a team in crisis, and we answer that question. Go and watch for yourself and let me know what your thoughts are on that matter. Then also in the same weekend, Manchester United returned to winning ways as they beat up against Sunderland by 2 goals to 0. Mason Mount scoring fast through an assist by Brian Mbomo. I think, was it around the 8th minute or thereabout? And then Benjamin Sesko scoring his second goal for Manchester United, and as far as the Premier League is concerned, excuse me, to win it by 2 goals to 0 for Manchester United. That's a very, very good result. I think it puts them in about 10th place on the Premier League log. Thereabout. I think they will be happy or pleased with themselves going into the international break, because it sort of relieves a little bit of pressure from Ruben Amorim, who has had a slow start or an undesirable start to their campaign. And then Manchester City had to grind it out away to the GTEC Stadium as they beat up against Brentford by a 1-0. That goal scored by Erling Haaland, which puts them in the top 5 now, with only 3 points off the top of the Premier League table. My prediction overall was for Manchester City to finish 4th this season. I'm yet to change my mind on that, but yeah, they've been posting the results and things look positive. However, the negative is that Rodrigo Cascante suffered a muscle injury in that game, had to be withdrawn off, I think, in the first half, and they brought on Nico Gonzalez. Then also, still in the same weekend in the Premier League, Crystal Palace's 19-game unbeaten run across all competitions was put to an end by a late winner by Jack Grealish as they lost to Everton by 2 goals to 1. Ilman Ndiaye had scored, I think, in the second half around the 76th minute from the penalty spot to cancel out Daniel Munoz's goal in the first half that had given Crystal Palace the lead, and things like that. And then also Nottingham Forest lost their 50th game in the 7 games they have been managed under Ange Postecoglou. They lost to Newcastle by 2 goals to 0. Nick Voltmada scoring from the penalty spot, while Bruno Guimaraes had scored from distance to give Newcastle the lead in a goal, which I thought in the build-up there was a foul on Morgan Gibbs-White, which the referee should have called, or at least VAR should have reviewed, because the way they clatter into Morgan Gibbs-White, for me, that's a foul. You could say he may have had conceded possession or lost possession, but that's a foul, you know. So, but they let it slide. So those are some of the key takeaways from the weekend, and as far as the Premier League is concerned. But also Aston Villa winning their 4th consecutive game across all competitions, 2 wins in the Premier League and 2 wins in the UEFA Europa League, as they beat up against Burnley by 2 goals to 1. Tottenham Hotspur also did return to winning ways after, I think, 2 consecutive draws in the Premier League, where they had drawn against Brighton in one of those games. Yes, they beat up against Leeds United by 2 goals to 1. So that's the look of things. Then also in the Spanish La Liga, Real Madrid reclaimed their top spot on the La Liga standings when they beat up against Villarreal, a 10-man Villarreal by 3 goals to 1. Kylian Mbappe, the goal scorer in that one, as well as a brace from Vinicius Junior, was enough to ensure that Real Madrid moved to 21 points in 8 games, 7 victories and 1 game lost in their opening 8 games. Barcelona remained second on the La Liga standings following their 4-1 embarrassing defeat to the hands of Sevilla, a team that they hadn't lost to, I don't know, in as many as what, 3,000 days? Or is that something like that? Anyways, it wasn't a decent result. Then also, Levante beating up against Real Oviedo was one of those results. The Italian Serie A, Napoli came from a goal down to beat up against Genoa by 2-1. In the German Bundesliga, we know that Bayern Munich beat up against Eintracht Frankfurt to consolidate their seat at the top of the Bundesliga standings. In the Italian Serie A, briefly, Juventus and AC Milan were involved in a goalless draw, disappointing result. In the French League One, Nuno Mendes scored a stunning free kick as they shared the spoils in a 1-1 draw with, I think, with Lille in that game. So, is it Lille? Yes, with Lille. So yeah, that's the summary of the weekend. Like I said, I will be coming in the course of the week. There are some topics that I want us to digest. Can Arsenal stand the pressure of being at the top of the Premier League? Oliver Glasner is reported to be interested in that Manchester United role. We will explore all those topics during the course of the week. But allow me to wrap this one here. It's been a pleasure being this with you. I wish you a very, very blessed and fruitful week. I hope my devices do not give up on me. Yeah, have a blessed day and a blessed week as well. Bye-bye.